Okay, the Qatar Grand Prix. What a show that was. Now, what I actually did during that race was that I actually made three videos. During the commentary, I played the live commentary and just kept pausing. I say live, I kept pausing it and exposing when things were wrong and then resume play. So I actually finished watching the Grand Prix probably about 40 minutes to an hour after the Grand Prix actually finished. But essentially, to me, it was like fresh footage. Um, I'm going to just play you this firstly. This was my third and final recording. This was about an hour and 3 minutes long. You can see we're about 3 minutes into it. And what I broke it down like this, and I realised that the length of my recordings were getting long, so I stopped it and then resumed. This one starts at about the point in time where a wing mirror had fallen off a car and was on the start finish straight, and they were waving yellow flags. So at this instance, we've just had Lando Norris go by that situation without lifting, which he should have done. Max Verstappen then complained that Lando wasn't lifting. The FIA doing nothing about it other than continually waving the yellow flags and supposedly making sure that these drivers slowed down. But they did that for about 4 laps, we're told. Something like that. Now, that is negligent. Like 4 laps and failing to deal with the situation. Now, the key thing is this, and let me just play you this bit of audio through, because you'll hear what I said at the time, but there's something that I really need to pick up. I didn't even pick up on it at the time, but it's been going through my mind since. And it made me find this, because I was in two minds whether to play this to people in terms of what I said at the time. But I'll play it through. It's only going to be a couple of minutes, but I'm going to highlight a key thing here. So let's have a listen to what I said during the race.
It seems strange to me that they've not moved it.
Oh, this is FIA race control, controlling the race.
Of Bernie Collins, I don't know if you were at the Silverstone base team when a bit fell off Sergio Perez's car in Hungary once. It was the only excitement we had that year because they had a safety car and it closed everyone up.
So this is me talking now, that the other times of what I said back then. The only excitement we had back then was the safety car. See, they like the safety car. It gives them the excitement, right? Okay, so there's that. But we need to listen to what Bernie Collins says. And it's a little bit into what she says.
I was up there when lots of bits fell off at various points, Crofty, but yeah, it is difficult. I think what they're weighing up here is there a good enough gap between Magnussen and Verstappen currently? There's quite a big gap on track, and I wonder if they think they can clear it in that time, but it's not a lot of time for someone to get out and back in, and they're probably weighing up any unfair advantage they would give by having a very, very short VSC.
They're probably trying to weigh up any unfair advantage they might give by having a very short VSC. That is Bernie Collins, the former Aston Martin team strategist. Okay? Now, that is what she said during the race.
It is difficult. I think what they're weighing up here is there a good enough gap between Magnussen and Verstappen currently? There's quite a big gap on track, and I wonder if they think they can clear it in that time. But
so, can somebody run out onto track, pick up that wing mirror, and get back off to the side? Which it looked like it was possible to be able to do that. Is there a gap big enough, a window of opportunity big enough in between Magnussen and Verstappen for somebody to go and do that? And they are weighing up. This is race control, right? In control of the safety aspects of this. It's a safety concern. There being debris on the track. They have to deal with a safe way of dealing with it. Can they just send somebody onto the track? Is there a reasonable amount of time for them to send somebody onto the track to pick it up and get it out of the way? What would be the contingency plan? And she is saying they are just seeing if there's going to be an unfair advantage. And I get fools come here to my comment section trying to argue that that the safety car procedure has nothing to do with sporting fairness. Do you not believe Bernie Collins, a former strategist?
It's not a lot of time for someone to get out and back in, and they're probably weighing up any unfair advantage they would give by having a very, very short VSC.
So, a VSC, what does that do? That neutralises racing. Competitors cannot gain any ground on whoever is in front of them, okay? But it makes sure everybody slows down. That is the best way of dealing with a situation if it is available to you. Because that way, all of the previously built up advantages are not wiped out. So if you can use it, that has the least amount of impact on the race. All of the effort that has gone in by all of the drivers up to that point, what they've accomplished doesn't get wiped out when you deploy the VSC. Them gaps are maintained. So if that is available to you, and in this case, it was. In this case, if you'd have notified the drivers in advance and said, right, we have got to clear this wing mirror off the track. It is off the racing line. Stay on the racing line. At the moment in time, Max Verstappen, was it Magnussen needs to go by it, and then there's a window in between Magnussen and Verstappen. At that point in time, as soon as Magnussen passes it, we are going to declare VSC. All of you are going to slow down to a delta. Slow down. Stay on the racing line. Somebody is going to run onto track, pick up that wing mirror and run off the track. Okay? As soon as I've done that, we will then give a 3-second countdown and racing will resume. So we'll give you a 3-second intro to be prepared. 1, 2, 3, VSC. Everybody, slow down. Stay on the racing line. Right, guy runs onto track, picks up the mirror, runs off the track. Okay, all clear. 3, 2, 1, we're back racing again. That is what could have happened without any impact on any of them drivers. Minimal impact. Drivers may have gained half or lost half a second as a result of that max. Instead, what do they do? Nothing. Bottas drives over it, smashes it all up, shards of carbon fibre, 2 cars pick up a puncture. One of them being Sainz, the other one being Hamilton. Impacting the Ferrari's effort in terms of their championship, the Constructors' Championship, at which a lot of money is at stake. Then we have to have a full safety car. Then all of the previously built up advantages are wiped out between all competitors, completely impacting the race. This is absolutely atrocious conduct from race control, from the FIA, the governing body of the sport, failing in their role to govern the sport. An absolutely atrocious display. Simple as that. There is just no defence of it. They've changed the race director, they've got a new guy in, and it's atrocious. We've also got this system of handing out penalties which has no consistency whatsoever. Zero. So the penalties that we've seen in qualifying, we have Max Verstappen impeding another driver on track who was gearing up to set a fast lap. That impeding impacted that driver's tyre temperature, the cleanliness of those tyres, if he got dust on them tyres by being forced onto the gravel slightly, impacting George Russell's potential lap time for his qualifying. The standard penalty for that is at least a 3-place grid drop. Max Verstappen got a 1-place grid drop, still keeping him on the front row of the grid as opposed to being relegated to 4th position. Already, that is still an advantage to Max Verstappen. At the end of the race, the narcissist team, okay, which the people that come here to troll the channel, There's a reason why you like Max Verstappen and why you like Red Bull, okay? You are the same. You are one and the same. You are narcissists, okay? You are abusive people and you only care about yourselves, and you are just the victim all the time. You're either right or you're the victim. You can never take accountability for when you're doing something wrong. You're always the victim. And at the end of the race, we got the message played to the world by F1 TV, because the owners of the show, they're also narcissists, and they want everybody in the world to be narcissists and not give a shit about their fellow man, not to care about anybody else. Just live your best life. Make sure you're winning at all costs. Make sure you're willing to trample over everybody else at all cost. Fuck everybody else at all costs, as long as you fight your way to the victory and fuck everybody else. That's all that matters. And then you get Giampiero Lambiase on the radio. Oh, yeah, we didn't go slow that race, did we, Max? Want to see you next Tuesday. Typical of everyone in that Red Bull setup. In that kind of setup, that is that system. Max Verstappen is the poster boy for you. That team is the poster team for you. The whole show of Formula One is owned by and ran by people with those values, and that is what they want to promote to the world. Everybody should be like them. Aspire to being like them. Fuck everybody else as long as you're living your best life. That's all they care about. I'm glad that it's working for you all, lads, that come here to troll, because I'm sure you're all living your best life currently in your bedrooms, on your racing car chair, and you've just received notification of this video, so you've watched it straight away. You've subscribed to this channel. You really don't like it. It really gets to you, what I say. But you still watch it. You've subscribed to it. You're addicted to it, aren't you, lads? You're addicted to it. You love it. And what you love most is getting in the comment section to say something to try to incite others. That's what excites you, doesn't it? That's what excites you. There's no part of you, not a single part of any of you, that can consider the greater impact of this, the greater societal values, where things happen in this world which could be to your detriment, or somebody who you cared about, how it might negatively impact them. But then the thing is, you probably don't care about anybody else, do you? Because it's all about you. And therefore you don't truly care about anyone, do you? That's a reflection of the narcissist that Formula One seeks to attract to the sport, and seeks to condition people that kind of conduct is okay. And that's what social media has done, hasn't it? It's all about how many likes you get. How good are you, everybody? Don't you look great? Keep falling in love with your own reflection. Aren't you brilliant? Narcissus did that. He was a narcissist. Funny that, isn't it? You couldn't make it up, could you? That a narcissist was called Narcissus. Which came first? I wonder. And anyway, too many talking points really at this Grand Prix. Too many talking points. I mean, you've got the notion of safety car on lap one. Who was at fault for which incidents? Which incidents are they going to penalise? Which crashes are they going to determine one driver to be at fault and not another? What they're going to call a racing incident? Which ones are going to be where a driver has forced somebody else off the track? And which ones are they say, let them race? There is absolutely no consistency. I was in the process of saying about the consistency of penalties. Max Verstappen gets a one-place grid drop as opposed to what would be at least a standard of three-place grid drop. And it's arguable that the conduct of Max Verstappen was worse than the standard, because it very much seemed that he had intent in what he was doing, as opposed to drivers that have an excuse for it. There very much seemed to be intent from Max Verstappen. So that should potentially have been greater than the standard three-place grid drop, which he didn't get. But then we get to the race, and Lando Norris didn't lift under yellow flag conditions, which is a penalty. But the magnitude of that penalty was off the chart. When was the last time you've seen a 10-second stop-go penalty? Which we're told, didn't actually time this with a stopwatch, we're told that cost Lando Norris 36 seconds of race time. 36 seconds of race time. You show me the last time somebody got penalised 36 seconds of their race time by the FIA stewarding decision for the imposition of a penalty. Somebody causes a collision, they get 10 seconds. Somebody forces somebody off the track, they get 5 seconds. Lando Norris didn't lift, gaining about 0.4 to 0.6 of a second. That's all it was. 0.4 or 0.6 of a second was all that he closed up on Max Verstappen during that situation. That's all the difference that lifting was. 0.4 or 0.6 of a second, and they imposed a penalty that cost him 36 seconds. Is that consistent by the stewards? Those same stewards who fixed Abu Dhabi 2021. Derek Warwick, Gary Connolly, who make decisions in favour of Red Bull every time that they are stewards. Every single time. And Red Bull will project, oh, this is the British bias. This is these British stewards that hate us. They're always giving us the penalties, aren't they? Ha ha. Oh, we didn't need to go slow that race, did we? That's what Red Bull will say about them. Always the victims. Always the victims. We then see Lewis Hamilton. Lewis jumped the start. Okay. Sometimes what we see, and again, Lewis, there's various ways of looking at this. And that is, you jump the start, you've committed an infringement. So there should be an automatic penalty. But what we need to establish is circumstance as well. Because things aren't consistent. If things were consistent, you could just quite simply stop me there. You jump the start, you get a penalty. Full stop. No argument. And I wouldn't argue with you. That's how it is. You jump the start, you get a penalty. Just like in athletics, think of the sprint events in athletics. Everybody's lined up in their blocks. The gun goes. If somebody has jumped the start, which they can identify because they've got sensors in the blocks and they can tell somebody's reaction times, they have a minimum reaction time. If you've gone before that minimum reaction time, that classifies you as having a false start. You get disqualified. Well, in the first instance, there's a one chance. That's the way they do it in athletics. And then if you false start again, you're disqualified. You're kicked out. That's the way that they do it there. But they know, they can tell from the data straight away whether or not you've done that. It took until about lap 16 of that race, a quarter of the way through that race, for them to reveal to the audience that that was what they were going to do to Lewis Hamilton. 16 laps. You can identify Lewis Hamilton's reaction time immediately. They have the data, they've got the sensors, they can tell whether or not Lewis Hamilton has performed a false start immediately. And that can automatically be a penalty that's applied there and then. They don't need to keep everybody waiting. They don't need to keep everybody speculating. That is something that they can do straight away. But here's the other thing. Here's a side of it. When it comes to some of the infringements that occur during a race, if there is no lasting advantage, then they will not impose a penalty. So, for example, If a driver performs an overtake by going off the track, providing that competitor gives the place back, they do not impose a penalty. If a driver forces a fellow competitor off the track, providing they don't gain an advantage by it and they let that driver who they forced off the track re-enter that track ahead of them, sometimes they will not impose a penalty. So somebody has committed an infringement, but they look at the outcome and then determine, has an advantage been gained? And if it hasn't been gained, we will not intervene by imposing a penalty. That is what the stewards are doing. So, if that's what they're doing in that instance, what happened in Lewis Hamilton's situation? Lewis Hamilton appeared, it seemed very tight, but I'm not going to argue his case to trying to say that he didn't do it. If he false started, which the data would probably suggest he probably did, they've not showed us that, or not that I'm aware of. It might be available, but not that I'm aware of. But assuming that he false started, let's accept that he did do a false start. What did he then do? He realised that that's what he'd done. He then eased off, disadvantaging himself. He didn't follow through with it. Okay, he accepted he did that, and therefore he went off the gas when everybody else was on, resulting in a loss of 2 places. So although he'd made an error, although he had done something that was wrong, committed an infringement, he imposed a penalty on himself. He lost 2 places. He didn't gain an advantage over his fellow competitor. And what then happened? The FIA hit him with a penalty. Now, that's not consistent. It's either one or the other. It's not both. And it's got to be consistent in terms of, if you're going to deal with other types of incidents in a certain manner, you need to deal with this type of incident in a certain manner. There can be no, this is the incident that's happened on this occasion, we're going to deal with it this way. On this occasion, we're going to deal with it another way. There is not a published list of infringements and a list next to that infringement of the penalty that will be applied. Why is that? Why is that? Why is it a discretionary thing as to, is this an infringement? And having decided whether or not it's an infringement, we'll then decide which penalty to apply or not. Well, that's just clearly corrupt, isn't it? Because you can pick and choose whether or not you're going to penalise an incident and actually describe it as being an infringement. You can choose to not even look at it. You can choose to look at it and decide it's not a problem. You can decide to look at it and decide that you're going to give it a penalty. You can then choose what type of penalty you're going to give. And we're not seeing any consistency in how they deal with that. That's corrupt. That's not a level playing field. That is not a fair sporting contest. That leaves the sport open to manipulation through how you penalise drivers. So what have we done in this instance in terms of the penalty applied to Lando Norris? Well, miraculously, what has it done to the Constructors' Championship? That's made sure that the Constructors' Championship goes down to the last race of the season. Stay tuned, everybody, for Abu Dhabi. It's going to be incredible. The showdown between McLaren and Ferrari. Whoa! Stay on the edge of your seats. Are Ferrari going to be able to overhaul the McLaren's 19-point or whatever advantage in the championship? Is this track going to suit the Ferrari car, who haven't been suited to the last 2 tracks? But this one is the Pro Ferrari track, and we know that this one doesn't suit McLaren. Oh, is it going to be the tyres? Is it going to be the temperature? Is it going to be the clean air, the dirty air? All the bullshit. Controls the narrative, doesn't it? 36 seconds. Lewis Hamilton then commits an infringement of not hitting his pit lane speed limiter when behind the safety car and going through the pits. Again, an infringement by Hamilton. Now, foolish. Okay, ultimately you are in a safety car, Snake. Your pit speed, your speed is limited by being in that anyway. But that's not to say you cannot fall afoul of going faster than the pit lane limiter speed. For example, if you end up, if Max Verstappen is on pit lane limiter speed and you are 10 car lengths and you close that 10 car lengths to be right up with him as you go through the pits, well, clearly you're going faster than him to gain that ground on him, so you're travelling faster than pit lane limiter speed. So you still need to use the pit lane limiter. Hamilton didn't do that. And what did they do? Impose a drive-through penalty. Now, how much time does that take out of your race? Going into the pit lane, slowing down to pit lane speed, travelling along the length of the pit lane at pit lane limiter speed, and then rejoining the track. Costing you what? However many seconds out your race. Far more than a 5-second penalty. Far more than a 5-second penalty. Now, what I need to do is compare that with similar infringements. Compare that with the type of penalty that they would normally give out. There is no consistency. I always like to try and evidence it, show you the example of when they've applied a penalty before. So we've got a race that they've had an incident on lap 1 causing a crash at turn 1, lap 1. Okay, safety car halfway around lap 1. That takes, well, they don't go racing until lap 5. So there's 4.5 laps of safety car when there's no lapped cars because they've only just started the race. So they don't have to release the lapped cars and the safety car stay out on track. We then get a wing mirror on the track. A wing mirror. Okay, on the track. Not a crash car. No crane required. No car catching fire. No fire extinguisher deployed. No, there would have been no need to sweep the track had they have dealt with that properly. They didn't deal with it properly. That wing mirror got smashed. It caused shards of carbon fibre to be on the track, creating a greater hazard, causing the puncture of 2 competitors' tyres as they're travelling down the start-finish straight at speeds of 200 miles an hour. Causing a puncture at 200 miles an hour. Them cars then had to complete an entire lap with punctured tyres. This is due to FIA race control. That is just atrocious management of that situation. Atrocious management. After those cars had made it to the pits, they then decide, oh, we've got to do something about this. After 4 laps of just watching and doing virtually nothing. Then they deploy the safety car. Then they close everybody up. After 2 cars have fallen all the way down back through the field because of the punctures that they've now got. Then they do that. So then we lose, 5 or 6 laps out of that race. Whilst they're lapping behind the safety car, they clear it up. All of the cars collects behind that safety car. And that takes a while because many of them cars are diving into the pits to change tyres. We're lapping through the pit lane. Then they release the lapped cars on the early part of a lap. I can't remember what lap it was. Whether it was the early stages of lap 46, something like that. They released Hamilton and Bottas at the early stages of lap, I think it was 46. The safety car then stayed out on track for the next lap, lap 47, the mandatory lap. And then they went racing again and immediately had another incident. They carried out the mandatory requirements. You've got Bernie Collins here on my recorded video talking about, let's just play it again. Let's just play this again. I've pressed the wrong bit. I need to press this one down here.
that time, but it's weighing up here is there a good enough gap between Magnussen and Verstappen currently? There's quite a big gap on track, and I wonder if they think they can clear it in that time, but it's not a lot of time for someone to get out and back in, and they're probably weighing up any unfair advantage they would give by having a very, very short VSC.
They're probably weighing up any unfair advantage they might give by having a very short VSC. Well, surely the odd driver either gaining half a second or losing half a second due to them intervening with a VSC is better than every driver losing all of the advantage that they'd built up, yeah? So she's talking about sporting fairness. I mean, ideally, the whole point of a VSC is so that there is no gain or losses. We know in reality, the practical application of it is that that's what it causes. But a safety car restart does exactly the same. Everybody's bunched up, the leader goes, and then you've still got the reaction times between each driver. So by the time they cross the start-finish line, the gaps are between half a second and 1 second between each competitor. That's not uniform. It's as uniform as they can get. But that's how it is with VSC as well. It's as uniform as they can get. But they didn't bother with that, did they? The imposition of penalties was just atrocious. Let's just see if there's anything else that she's saying.
If it was a VSC or a safety car now, I think everyone who's on the
very easy to determine this. You look at track of view, you look at where the cars are located around track, and you determine how long is it going to take to get somebody ran out there and back, right? And make sure that they're clear by the time that next car comes through. You've got to also have in the back of your mind, if that person that runs out onto track to try and pick this wing mirror up and then turn to come back, if they twist their ankle and end up being strewn on the track, you need to make sure that the next car along is mindful that that might be happening. All right, so you've got to communicate to the car that is right. As soon as, let's say, it's Max Verstappen and Kevin Magnussen, soon as Max Verstappen passes that incident, a guy's got to leg it onto the track, pick that mirror up, and be gone. Right, but if the car that then is following, that's whether it's Magnussen, they say whether he's now been lapped, who knows. He needs to be aware that this is happening and be prepared to take evasive action should that be necessary. And then there needs to be an immediate response should something happen to that marshal in terms of a twisted ankle and him fall or stumble on track. But it should be possible for somebody to sprint out, pick something up, sprint back within a few seconds. Okay, that is how you should be able to intervene in this sort of incident. But also always be prepared that you might then need to do something if something untoward happens.
Tyres they started on would stop. The team that would struggle the most would be Ferrari, because there's only 4.3 seconds between their cars.
So that's what I said during the race. All right, I think I'd got it wrong because I think the situation was Magnussen was ahead of Verstappen, and they were talking about a window that once Magnussen had passed the scene, how long it would be before Verstappen arrived on the scene. But the way I spoke about it during the race was the other way round, that as soon as Verstappen may have passed the scene, that Magnussen might have been the following car. So I think I got that bit wrong real time, okay? But it was a situation that could have been dealt with. And there are ways that you can deal with it, but they don't do it. Safety is massive. And just randomly sending somebody out to run onto the track, you can't do that without taking appropriate measures, safety measures. Okay, so you've got to have a time window and ensure that that is a reasonable time window with a built-in safety margin, right, you might need to slow them cars down as well, which is actually going to give you that time window, and also slow the cars down, make them fully aware of what's going on. Race control should have the ability to communicate with every driver. There should be a button whereby race control press it and every driver is hearing the same message from the race director. Drivers, there is debris off the racing line at the end of the pit lane on the start-finish straight. We are going to send a marshal on track to remove that. You will stay on the racing line. In when I give the order, and I will give you a countdown, 3, 2, 1, like that. When I give you that countdown, we are going to go to VSC, at which point in time you must slow to a delta. Okay, you will stay on the racing line. You will be mindful that there is a marshal going to run onto track to pick up that debris at that location. So remain on the racing line and be mindful that you should not get anywhere near that marshal. And if anything goes wrong with your car, then make sure you veer off to the left and get well away from that marshal. Okay, that should be quite safe to do so. They're going in a straight line. They shouldn't ideally have any problem. Even if they suffer a puncture that's going to make them lose control, having slowed to a much slower speed, that speed being slower should enable them to keep control of their car. Okay, that makes the situation safe. You put in place the measures to maximise dealing with that in the safest manner possible, whilst at the same time having the minimal impact on the race itself. Okay, once the marshal has completed that task and is clear of the track and it is safe, I will give you a countdown in 3, 2, 1 again, and then the VSC will end and you can then go racing. Do you all understand? Yes, press your button. 20 lights come back onto race control, indicating that all competitors have heard and have understood that message. Okay, so they're all aware. And then you time this with tracker view. You can see where your drivers are on track. You can see which driver you're going to allow past that and where that window is going to be when you send your marshal on the track. You're giving them the countdown when you know that that driver that is going to pass that incident is just going to arrive at that incident. 3, 2, 1. Magnussen's just passed the incident. VSC. Slow down. Right, guy runs onto the track, picks it up, runs off. Okay, track clear. VSC ending in 3, 2, 1. We're done. That would have saved 6 or 8 laps out of that race that were wasted under safety car. But that's not the formula, is it? That's not the formula. The formula is to keep you on the edge of your seats. The formula is to wipe out all of those advantages. And let's start again, everybody, and make it all excited again. That's not really a valid sport, is it? Let's play football and your favourite team is 3-0 up, but we'll roll the dice. Oh, it's landed on. It's made it 0-0 again. Oh, let's spin the wheel. Oh, what's going to happen now? Instead of being 4-0, it's back to 0-0. That's not the way the sport should be, is it? It's not the way it should be. But this is the way that they are utilising their control of the sport, their management of the sport, to facilitate that action effectively. So there is loads that we could go into, so many different controversial things that will incite differences of opinion and argument, and that is what they want. A lot of these things are done by design. There's a lot of conflict in this world that is manufactured and it is put there by design for people to argue about these things. There are often simple solutions. And even if in this video the solutions that I am proposing aren't necessarily the best ones, how about, rather than argue over it, people come together and determine the best way and say, okay, I understand what you're saying, but that's still a problem. So actually we need to do it this way because this way would make sure that that is not the problem. And it can be determined a solution that is effective and will work. That can be found. And that solution can then be applied in a uniform manner. And therefore, there can be no argument. When something happens, that is the procedure that gets carried out. Everybody knows that it's a procedure. It's happened every time. That's it. Who's arguing? Nobody. That same sort of thing can happen with the management of every country in this world. What we're supposed to have is a body that manages the affairs of the country that we live in, so that that country operates, ideally, to best serve the people who live in that country and the lives that they're leading. So you'd think, wouldn't you? You'd think that is what it would be about, wouldn't you? Government. The ment bit is mind. Govern, mind. Government governs your mind. Are they operating in the best interests of serving the needs of the country? Having a 30, a 40, a 50-year plan to benefit the country going forward. Plan for the future. Housing infrastructure. Transport infrastructure. All of the life's essentials that we need for our lives. Governmental decisions, what are they doing? They're enabling certain individuals to make a lot of money. Who's in control of that? The process of determining these decisions is that intelligent people sat around a table discussing how is the best solution for the challenges that lay ahead, and how we're going to implement the solutions for those challenges that lie ahead, and how to best perform this so that it is a long-lasting decision for the greater good. Is that how countries are governed? No, it's not, is it? We in the UK get 300 people on one side of a room, 300 people on another side of the room, waving bits of paper at each other and jeering at each other. We get, when a problem is identified to be spoken about, we get the party in power proposing what it is going to do, and we get the party that doesn't like them because they're their opponent. They will say the opposite of that solution, rather than say, oh, actually, yeah, that's a good solution, let's all go with that. Somebody proposes an effective, workable solution, and somebody stands there and says no. We think that's okay? That is fucked up. That is fucked up. And we are supposed to believe that that is a normal way of operating in this world. Inciting conflict, creating division on purpose from the top down. And these narcissistic fucks that are ultimately controlling this, they like that. And those that come to the comment section to troll, you like that, you get off on that, don't you? That arouses you. Fuck you. Okay, that's all you deserve. Okay? Oh, James is a hater. James is a hater. Yeah, I hate those of you who have that kind of mind. You're part of the problem in this world. You are part of the problem in this world. And the rest of us that aren't as selfish as you fuckers, we deserve better. We need to stand firmer and mould this world into what we want it to be like. A better place for everybody, rather than a place for these narcissistic fucks that just don't give a fuck about anybody else and only care about themselves. So, I hope you enjoyed the Qatar Grand Prix. that'll do from me on this one. Thank you for your time.